Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. Very interesting show today, detailing Donald Trump's connections to Bill Gates before the pandemic. And I think we stumbled upon something. There were talks of an epidemic. There were talks of vaccine cold storage in 2016, right after Trump won the election. So we're going to look at that today, and also some shocking disclosure about Hannah Kobayashi, the missing Maui woman whose father got suicided after looking for her. I'm going to tell you what my thoughts are on how all this went down, what happened. They're now saying that they found her, but not before her dad was suicided while looking. So we're going to examine what the Psyop might be about all of that, because obviously all is not what it seems. And we'll do that Hannah Kobayashi update for the second part of today's show. But first, let me say good morning to everybody, and we'll get into this Bill Gates relationship with Donald Trump. Now, we all remember the videos that we did of Gates being a tenant at Trump Tower. So I wanted to, Trump World Tower, I'm sorry. I wanted to double down on that and dig a little bit deeper. And when I did, I found some pretty creepy stuff going on with that. What all this does is it just shows you the continuity of the message. Trump World Tower being there at the center of the pharmaceutical headquarters of the world, of the top pharmaceutical companies, the UN building, the WHO, which is under the UN, Gates being a tenant there, Gates meeting with Trump before the pandemic. It paints a pretty damaging picture, doesn't it? And that's what we're going to get into today. Good morning, everybody. Welcome back. Now, most of you are probably trying to stay warm. It's been very cold the last week. We're into winter. Today is supposed to warm up a bit here into the 50s. Well, and that'll be nice. But I've got the rain barrels full. The birds are coming in, and they're using it pretty much as a bird bath and to get some water, because rather than, fly all the way out to the lake. And I've got some bird feed out here for them so that they can stay fed through the winter. So I'm trying to take care of my birds out here. And some big, beautiful robins come in, huge birds in all kinds of species. I mean, I've never seen such diversity anywhere. So it's kind of neat to look out the window and watch the birds, playing in the water and eating the bird feed. Now, let's get into this, you guys. I was not expecting to find any definitive connections between Trump and Gates. I went into this with an open mind, thinking, okay, maybe there's something, but is it going to be enough to, do a show for you guys? Well, again, Gates took up lodging at Trump World Tower in the year 2000. Here's the article on it from July 30th, 2000. And according to this, he occupied the floor beneath the penthouse. He didn't get the top floor, but he got the floor beneath it. That's pretty major. It wasn't like he was on, just an apartment, some random apartment in Trump World Tower. No, he was one apartment beneath the penthouse. So obviously these two men were well acquainted in the year 2000, because obviously Trump would have been at the center of that purchase and that deal. In fact, he brags about it in this article. And we're going to read this, and then I'll tell you what my thoughts are about it. Mr. Bill's logging into Trump's tower. This is New York Post. Bill Gates, still the world's richest man, despite Microsoft's legal woes, has just signed on the dotted line for a lofty lair in the 900-foot-high Trump World Tower overlooking the UN building. Sources say Gates is paying $19.8 million for an 8,500-square-foot full-floor pad with 16-foot ceilings on one of the building's top floors. The software guru's reps would neither confirm nor deny the report. It tends to make sense, said one residential developer. There's a natural bond. Gates and Trump World Tower are both overwhelming and controversial. So too is the project's developer, Donald Trump, who wouldn't comment on the Gates deal, but took the opportunity to tout his recently topped off tower. The building has really been well received, claimed the Donald. The community is loving it now. Prices in the neighborhood have gone up tremendously because of the building. Indeed, after a hot bidding war, a near 179 space parking garage recently sold for $7.5 million. Some of the new building's upscale high-profile neighbors, like Walter Cronkite, have been vocal in their opposition to the high-flying project. Although Gates still sits at the top of the world's personal fortune, he'll have to contend himself with living just below the 17,000 square foot duplex penthouse. Now, it says here, Trump says, that was sold a few months ago for $38 million. It's the highest price ever paid in the history of real estate for a New York apartment. Meanwhile, Gates has combined 2 apartments into one, taking over an entire floor. He even has his own personal elevator going up to the suite. Wow. Now, I'll put a link to this article as I do in the pinned comments. But at some point, Bill Gates must have sold this apartment in Trump World Tower, right? I mean, here we are in 2024. And he should have sold this apartment. There's no way Bill Gates could be living in Trump World Tower still. But mysteriously, there is no record of Bill Gates' apartment ever being sold. Now, remember, the interesting thing is there's his own personal elevator. And if he drove into his own personal parking spot and went up his own personal elevator, it's conceivable that Bill Gates could still be in that property in Trump World Tower, even through all the years of the pandemic. Now, I know Bill Gates has multiple properties, but this is a little bit creepy. Now, if any of you super sleuths out there go on the internet and you find out and you do your search, I don't know, I tried everything. I tried DuckDuckGo, I tried Google, and I basically searched for Bill Gates sells Trump World Tower property, and nothing came up. There's no record of it. There's a record of him purchasing it, but not selling it. So if you guys find that, put it in the comments section, and I'll redact the statement, and we can move on from there. And maybe this will help us solve a little bit more of the puzzle. But wow. So I kept digging because I wanted to see if Bill Gates had ever met Donald Trump. Because, you know, again, that was one of the top real estate transactions. Bill Gates purchasing, you know, a full floor on Trump World Tower. Trump would have inevitably been involved in that transaction, right? Because that's what, that's what important people do for high profile clients. So did they ever talk? Now, this might be old news, but we're going to look at it from a different perspective. Because Bill Gates, after Trump won his first presidency in 2016, Bill Gates went to go see Donald Trump at Trump Tower, a different building, not Trump World Tower, but Trump Tower. He went to go see him, and here's some video footage of Bill Gates walking out of a meeting with Trump in Trump Tower 3 years before the pandemic, almost 4 years. What did they talk about? Well, let's take a look. Look at the face.
Well, just a quick comment. We had a good conversation about
So there's Bill Gates, of course, walking out of Trump Tower after he just met with Donald Trump. Now, what they talked about is what's going to blow your mind. Vaccine, cold storage, epidemics, and a few other things. 4 years before the pandemic happened. And of course, Bill Gates would emerge as a prominent figure during the pandemic, telling all of us to go out and get vaccinated. Remember this? And on the verge of forcing it on people and saying, and the lockdowns. Remember, so was this some kind of consultative meeting? I don't know the answer to that. And I'm not going to claim that, but there's some interesting stuff going on here. Let's keep playing this here. Let me fix this so you guys can hear this. Unbelievable.
Innovation, how it can help in health, education.
Back this up a little bit.
Well, just a quick comment. We had a good conversation about innovation, how it can help in health, education, impact of foreign aid and energy, and a wide-ranging conversation about the power of innovation. Thank you.
So, how he can help with health, innovation, energy, and a few other things. Now, we're going to break all this down because I wanted to dig deeper. What was Bill Gates talking about? About health innovation. What did he mean? Well, Bill Gates' innovation plan for health back in 2016 involved a Chinese manufacturer who made cold storage barrels for vaccines. These very barrels would be used to keep COVID vaccines cold 4 years later. In fact, the company's stock for that cold storage barrel doubled after as the vaccines were about to come to market. Leading up to the release, as people were purchasing up these barrels to keep the vaccines cold, the stock price doubled. Now, let's read this article about a little bit more detail about what they talked about at the meeting. This is dated December 13th, 2016. So we're coming up on the anniversary of this, aren't we? Bill Gates meets with Donald Trump, says President-elect can be like JFK on innovation. Of course, we know that Trump went down in history with his near-death experience similar to JFK earlier this year. Bill Gates seems to know the future, doesn't he? Let's read this. Bill Gates is making rounds to promote his new $1 billion venture fund for cutting-edge energy technologies. One of the people who apparently wanted to hear more is President-elect Donald Trump. This infers that Bill Gates was literally invited to this meeting. The Microsoft co-founder met with Trump in New York today, and afterwards Gates stopped at the lobby of Trump Tower to share some of what they discussed. Remember, this is all problem, reaction, solution. Bill Gates has an agenda, the green agenda, to bring the world to their knees with carbon credits and taxing and all these things. And in order to get there, you have to wonder if they created the problem to begin with. You have to wonder if this wasn't what was presented to Trump. Let's keep reading here. We had a good conversation about innovation, how it can help in health education, impact of foreign aid and energy. A wide-ranging conversation about the power of innovation. So that's the quote that we just saw in the video. Earlier Tuesday, Gates gave a lengthy interview on CNBC's Squawk Box, which he talked more about his venture fund and Trump, including how Trump has the opportunity to be like former President JFK when it comes to American leadership. So, now, to give fair balance, Trump actually went against some of these policies that Bill Gates presented. One of them was trade with China. Bill Gates was basically telling Trump to go easy on China. And of course, believe it or not, China got rich during the pandemic because, again, 80% of Walmart and Amazon products are from China. So when everyone was forced to stay home, or only shop at Walmart, which was the only place that was open for a while, China got rich. And we see that in their stock prices for all these Chinese products coming out of China. Well, and the stock price of Amazon and Walmart was through the roof during the pandemic, which in effect means that China got rich on those sales. Okay. So yes, China did well, but what Trump was saying was something different. Oh, we're going to stick it to China. Remember all that? Well, they got rich anyway. And you can research that yourself, how China performed during the pandemic. And you'll see the truth. Despite the rhetoric that Trump was talking about blaming China for everything. Now, what else is going on? Well, Trump also rejected the green policies that Gates promoted. And this is why, in giving fair balance, I can't say that Trump for sure knew or was made aware of a coming pandemic. But what this does say is that they talked about an epidemic, because this was part of the plan. Let's keep reading here. Trump likes a good deal. Gates said he prepared to lobby Trump on making sure America is in the forefront of energy research and development. Stocks are expensive. It talks about the Dow Jones in the wake of Trump's victory and no trade war with China. So this was Gates basically, talking about reducing tariffs to promote trade with China. Gates' Breakthrough Energy Ventures Fund, which was formally announced on Monday, will feature the billionaire philanthropist as its chairman and boasts another technology industry leaders among its board and investors. I'm honored to work along with these investors to build on the powerful foundation of public investment and basic research, to build companies that will help deliver the next generation of reliable, affordable, emissions-free energy to the world. Now, of course, we know that all energy is dirty energy. They've proven that with these lithium mines and how it works. There is no such thing as clean energy. In fact, even the far left liberals do not like lithium battery production for electric cars. They realize that it's even worse. But the agenda is still being pushed, or was being pushed. We'll see how Trump handles all this. But as it sits now, many states are developing lithium and mining lithium, and battery plants are being produced all across America. We'll see if Trump shuts all those down. We don't need to be producing that here. We need to move away from electric technology and back to oil and gas. It's safer, it's still abundant, and it puts us in a much more powerful position in the world, especially given the fact that what we are told to believe is that Russia and China are a threat. So why are we going to make ourselves weak by going to electric technology? Makes absolutely no sense. Now, let's expand on this whole health innovation thing that Bill Gates was talking about and what was likely talked about at the meeting with Donald Trump. This is the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. This was the plan back in 2016, strengthening global health innovation. And they talk about China. China is center at the forefront of this innovation. So China was talked about at the meeting with Trump and Gates. What are they talking about? Innovations in vaccines. And this particular product for vaccine storage, the product's called ArcTech. And what it is essentially is a glorified 50-gallon drum to keep vaccines in cold storage in extreme environments, like the desert, like Africa, and these different places. Now, most of this, if you read through it, is centered around the Ebola vaccine, but then it was segued into the COVID vaccine when that came out. This same barrel was being used. I'll show you pictures of it in a minute, but this is really creepy. China, they're talking about China, Africa. Let's read this. Strengthening global health innovation. Again, this is Bill Gates' plan that he likely talked to Trump about in 2016 at this meeting. Healthcare in China has improved significantly in recent decades. Major increases in government spending on health have been complemented by innovations in vaccines and other health products, regulatory improvement, and particular focus on maternal and child health. This progress has led China to achieve many of its targets under the United Nations Millennium Development Goals ahead of schedule. So they're literally talking about how well China is doing with vaccines. Many of China's systems improvements and technological innovations have huge potential to benefit other developing nations. We are working with partners across public and commercial health sectors to design interventions that can unleash this potential and benefit global health far beyond China's shores. Research and development. So they talk about this, China, tuberculosis, vaccines, AIDS vaccines. It's just all about that. The partnership also allowed the foundation to respond rapidly in 2020 to fund COVID-19 research in China. And here's the commercial partnership, this Arctech vaccine storage device they're talking about here. So here's some pictures of it. And here you see this barrel on the back of this camel being carried in the desert, yet the vaccine is kept cold. Now, of course, we know that the COVID vaccine had to be stored at sub-zero temperatures. So this is part of it as well. They talk about regulatory reform and the WHO, all the players during the pandemic. Now, let's keep reading here. Here's some more images of this vaccine cold storage. This is the actual barrel here, the Arctech ultra cold storage. And down in this article, they mentioned that it was used for the COVID vaccine as well. Returning the Arctech for use with dry ice, which would keep up to 1,500 doses of Pfizer COVID vaccine frozen for several weeks. So, now, part of this is Bill Gates is talking about epidemics. It doesn't say pandemic, but epidemics. So what are the odds of this? Is all this coincidence? Is it foreknowledge? I don't know the answer. But these barrels cost $2,500 a piece. Now, I don't know if they were given to the people in Africa. I can't imagine some of these African nations being able to afford $2,500 per barrel just to store vaccines. But this is crazy. Now, I wanted to look at this company that actually sells these Arctech barrels. And notice the name. They literally put a biblical name in this, the Ark. Like carrying something that's alive, which of course the Ark is, full of life. But this is bizarre. Now I wanted to look at the company that actually makes this barrel. Here is the graph for their stock price. And I was shocked to find a very apparent pattern. The name of the company that makes it is called ACMA. And you can see the spelling there on your screen. And this is the Shanghai Stock Exchange. This is what the stock did in the months leading up to the launch of the vaccine, as all of these companies were buying up these barrels in anticipation of being able to need to store the vaccine. And as you can see here, the stock price started out, let's put the little pointer on here, started out December 2019. That's when the pandemic started, and went from $4 a share. And in the months leading up to the actual launch of the vaccine, which happened in December of 2020, it just kept climbing and climbing and climbing, and ended up more than doubling by the time the vaccine launched in December of 2020. And there you see it there. It peaked out. No doubt anyone that invested in Arctech and ACMA doubled their money. This is how people get rich. They already know the agenda. They bet on it, and then they make a ton of money. More than doubled, almost tripled the stock price. So you turn $1 million into $2 million in the course of a year. And at those odds, it's no wonder why these people get rich and have all the control. Bill Gates has a meeting. Hey, we're talking about world health and epidemics, and you might want to invest in this barrel that keeps vaccines cold. Is probably how the conversation went, because it was part of his initiative from the beginning. Now, at this point, the stock falls off, but by then they've already made their money. They've already almost tripled their money, right? And all the barrels were being purchased on this run up because they knew a vaccine was going to be developed. They knew that back in December of 2019. And then here's where you see the purchases begin. Oh, wow, we better get ready. It's going to happen. This was March 2020. This is probably when Trump made the announcement that he's going to make a vaccine at warp speed. Remember this? Probably somewhere around that time. This was during the lockdowns. The stock price almost already doubled at that point. It hit, let's see here. It hit up in the seven range. And this is what happened. Now, this is shocking, isn't it? What is this all about? Well, this is a world that you could never imagine. This is why we do these videos, because no one else is looking at this stuff because they're stuck. Their mind is stuck. They only see right or left. They don't see what's hiding in the shadows. This is why we have to cover this stuff. Unbelievable. Now, in fair balance, this company, Okma, they don't just make barrels for vaccine storage. They also do other things. They mostly involved in refrigeration of all kinds of things, not just vaccine storage. But we all know that medical devices, which is what it is, have very high profit margins. So they probably represent a significant amount of money for the company. So all of that we just talked about was likely talked about at the meeting, health innovations. Now, what we don't have is Trump's reaction to what was presented. There's nothing on the internet that says that Trump responded about the meeting or made any comments about it on Twitter or anything, unless you guys find something. And that would help me out if you could look for that to see if, in 2016, December 2016, if Trump tweeted anything out about this meeting, that would be helpful because it might give us insight into what happened and what was known before it all happened. Now, what else is going on? Well, they talked about some other things too. Energy innovation. Now here's Gates' plan for energy innovation, and it involves everything that has to do with climate change and all this stuff. And again, Trump seemed to reject that during the meeting, but here's the article on that as well. Wow. Now, if these two men had never had any prior relationship through the Trump World Tower, Gates' purchase of the apartment, then I wouldn't assume that Trump had any foreknowledge of the pandemic. But Gates essentially told Trump what was going to happen in 3 years. Now, whether or not Trump knew, that's up to you to decide. But here's the information, and I want to get you guys up to date on that. Let's go back into the chat, you guys. Pretty crazy, right? Now, let's hop off of that and get into the Hannah Kobayashi update. I'll give you guys my thoughts on that. You can't help but think that this is all about biometrics and facial recognition, and I'll explain that to you in a minute. But in some shocking turn of events, they say now that they've got Hannah on camera. Now, they're saying that they got her on camera crossing into Mexico and that she is being willfully missing, is what they're saying. They're saying that she's been missing on purpose, that she does not want to be found. And they're claiming that she crossed back into Mexico. This is crazy. Let's read this. This is the Los Angeles Times. Hannah Kobayashi crossed into Mexico alone, police said. Chief urges her to message her family. A flyer with photos of Hannah Kobayashi in this graphic here. Hannah Kobayashi crossed the U.S. border into Mexico on foot and alone, according to L.A. police. Investigators in the case of the missing Hawaii woman reviewed surveillance video from Border Patrol on Monday. The footage clearly shows 30-year-old Hannah Kobayashi crossing the United States border on foot into Mexico. she was alone with her luggage. Now, interestingly, they don't show us this video. They just tell us that they have her on video. On November 12th, Kobayashi was seen using cash and her passport to get a bus ticket to Union Station in order to reach the San Ysidro border crossing, where she crossed into Mexico through a tunnel shortly after noon, McDonald said. She has been classified as a voluntary missing person. Now, do I believe this? No, I do not. And I'll tell you why. I believe all this is predictive programming to segue us into biometrics and facial recognition. I think at the end of the day, they want people to think that if only a camera could have located Hannah's face in real time, that her father might still be alive. I believe that this is what this is all about. Or at least they're steering the story back in this direction. Because think about this. For weeks, we've watched the news leak these Hannah Kobayashi sightings, except it's always a little bit too late. And her father was there. He went to the LAX and was desperately searching for her. And then he ended up mysteriously dead. They're saying he committed suicide, but I think they suicided him. And they want everyone to start to think, wow, we need better surveillance. Maybe her dad would still be alive. Now, obviously, this is likely not the scenario that happened. But this is what 99% of the people who follow the story think happened. They think the dad actually died of grief because he couldn't find his daughter. And if only we had better surveillance, he would still be alive. Wow. Now, here's the dead giveaway, because the story basically mentions that Hannah was wanting to go off grid. They looked through all of her stuff and all her social media, and they found like a couple random comments of her talking about wanting to go off the grid and wanting to be left alone in life. So obviously this is more predictive programming. Also, why would they focus on this woman? There's a lot of people that go missing all the time, right? Why are they focused on this woman? It seems to me like a dead giveaway. And also another dead giveaway is this whole Mexican border thing. They're linking the Mexican border into this, which of course will be the flashpoint through which Donald Trump will bring in biometric tracking for illegals. He's already talked about it. It will be the impetus for biometric tracking. So weird. Now, there's some people that actually believe it's a good thing to document the illegals with biometric tracking. Well, eventually that will be implemented ubiquitously across America on American citizens. They just need to test it on the illegals. They need a segue to start to bring it in. Now, they're already leaking their ability to see people using facial recognition. They're already leaking this right through the story. They're leaking it through the story because how is it that they were able to match her face with her identity through a camera, right? When some of these instances, there was no passport scanned, but they just saw her face on there. So that's facial recognition on some level. So I'll put a link to this story, but basically they said that she didn't want to be found. But, obviously she probably must know that her father is dead. Why wouldn't she reach out to authorities at that point? There's no indication that she had any kind of falling out with her father. So you would think she would come forward, right? And be, sad about this and talk to the authorities about this. If you find out that your parent is gone. So that's another dead giveaway, that not is all what it seems. I'll tell you what I think happened. Again, I believe her father stumbled onto some kind of trafficking ring, and I believe whoever's trying to cover this up suicided him, and then they have such a high level of sophistication to be able to cover up this crime that they were able to put up artificial intelligence generated images of Hannah pretending as though she crossed back into Mexico. And then at that point, all bets are off. Because they'll just say, oh, she died in Mexico and we don't know how she died. Or whatever. Or that's why we can't find her because she's in Mexico. She doesn't want to be found. Because again, why wouldn't she contact the family? It's worried about her. Why wouldn't she reach out to the family given the fact that her father's dead? Now, what else is going on? Now, normally I wouldn't speculate about, them bringing to bear all these resources to cover up a crime, because that's just speculation, right? But the dad's death has to be the smoking gun about the level of sophistication that these people are capable of. Now, at the least, if I were the family, I would be demanding proof of life. I wouldn't take their word for it that she crossed into Mexico. I would demand that she be picked up and detained in Mexico so they could see her in the flesh and talk to her to make sure that she's alive, and then let her go on her way. But we need to figure out what happened to this woman, right? Because we know that the lengths of which the government will go to cover up a trafficking ring. We've already seen it with the Epstein-Ghislaine Maxwell case. It's not too far outside the realm of possibility that they would generate AI images to do this. So, crazy, right? All right, you guys. Let's hop off of that and get into a couple of these other headlines and developments that are going on. I've got some funny space footage for you guys. Artemis space footage. Again, that's Trump's moon landing program that he signed during his first presidency. So we're definitely going to see more of that going on. Good morning, everybody. We'll get a good laugh in as we watch this phony space footage. How are you guys doing this morning? What are your thoughts on Hannah Kobayashi and what's going on? Hayashi is a main belt asteroid. It says Action Vista. They can smash those surveillance tapes to cover things up. Yes, that's exactly what I think. A warrant for biometrics, says Seeker of Truth. Yep, cheap fake, deep fake. Those are my thoughts exactly. Okay, let's laugh a little bit. Ready for this? Ready to watch the horizon jump around like a dead fish? Here's what they want us to believe is the Artemis spacecraft entering Earth's atmosphere. Look, you could see it right here. Hold on, let me back this up for you guys. Okay, ready? Let's put the music on for cinematic effect. Oh, come on. So this is supposed to be Artemis re-entering Earth's atmosphere. Look how wavy the horizon is. That tells you the camera's messed up. Why can't they just give us a straight answer? Why do we have fisheye lenses? Let me refresh this page. It's not going to play yet. Hold on. And this is what we get. Trillions of dollars spent on NASA, and we can't even get a real image that doesn't have some kind of lens on it that isn't showing us the truth. You can see it right here. That all is not what it seems. All right, here we go. Now it'll play. All right, let me turn the all right, let's try again. Look at the horizon, you guys. Whoa, Sounds like popcorn. Whoa, look at that. See how wavy it is? So this is people's problem with NASA and their cameras. And it's obvious. Just use a real camera so we can see what it actually looks like. We don't need any kind of lens on the camera. So that's what's going on with that. Now, tomorrow, we're going to get into how purple dye is made. You're not going to believe this. Basically, when purple dye is made and it starts to cure, it starts with the first colors of the rainbow, you know, the yellow, the orange, and the red. And as it cures, it moves through each of the colors of the rainbow until it finally ends up at the last color of the rainbow, which is purple. So I'm going to show that to you guys tomorrow. It's actually a re-upload, but we're going to try to play it here on the channel. And we'll talk about it. We're also going to talk about the Pearl and the Harbor. Pearl Harbor, because that's coming up, the anniversary of Pearl Harbor. We're going to talk about what all that means and how it relates to Jesus' birthday. Jesus wasn't born in Christmas, but he was conceived around that time. 9 months later, on 9/11, I believe, is when he was actually born. But conception is different. And they call December 7th the Mary Conception Day, don't they? Because they already know. But yet, why do they place Christmas as the date that he was born? The two dates are 9 months apart. So we're going to break some of that down tomorrow. Let me go back into the chat, see what you guys are up to before we get off of here today. Can you believe that? Horizon's just jumping around and people accept this. It's normal. Oh, it's the lens, Casey. Okay, if it's the lens, then change the lens. Show us the accurate image of what is being seen, what a person would see if they were up there watching this. Wow. I mean, that's the least they can do with all the money we send them, right? Through our tax dollars. Yeah, it sounded like a toilet, huh, Crystal? It sounded like popcorn or a toilet. You guys are funny. Oh, yeah, did you guys hear about Wendy Williams? Like she basically went crazy or something. They are flushing the camera. Artemis entering the toilet. Right? A space toilet. NASA films are like found footage horror films. Using shaky handy cams, right? Yeah, what's up with this? You know, oh, supposedly we went to the moon, right? Several times, they tell us. And we've sent lots and lots of spacecraft there. But no one can ever bring us back detailed 4K camera footage, right? Should be pretty easy in 2024. Back from the moon so that we can zoom it in and look at all the space dust and the space rocks, right? Why don't we have that yet? Didn't the Chinese just send a probe? What came back from that? Was there high, resolution images? You guys, across the world, across all the countries, they've spent trillions of dollars in moon exploration. Trillions. And no one will give us good footage. We get wide angle views. We get stuff that you can't zoom in on it. Why do you think that is? We have 4K cameras now. If you're going to invest $1 billion to send a space probe and land it on the moon, right? So they tell us $1 billion. Why can't you put $1,000 camera or a $3,000 camera on the probe and have it so that a button goes off and it records it, and then it fires a rocket and it comes right back to Earth. We all get to open it up and see what it is. Correct? Because I get all these excuses under the sun. Everyone's like, oh, well, Casey, you can't do a 4K camera on the moon. Why? Oh, because, what do they say? What do people say? That's not the mission. Well, they better change the mission then. Or we can't stream that kind of data from the moon. Okay, we'll bring the camera back then. Save it to a disk. Take an hour of footage and a simple rocket. It's not like you got a human on there, and bring it back to Earth so we can all look at it. It would really help them. It would really be in NASA's best interest to do that, because then they would get a lot of more people believing everything, right? Which would mean more people would justify more tax dollars going to NASA. They'd be like, oh, you know what? This is great. I can just set my TV on and watch hours and hours and hours of moon footage. And look how crystal clear it is. And wow, there's an Earthrise coming up over the horizon. This is super cool. Oh yeah, I think this is great. And then they get more people to send more money. And then there's, of course, going to be the fanatics, people that are like all into moon stuff. And they'll just sit and watch this moon footage streaming for hours and hours and zoom in on all the space rocks, right? I mean, why wouldn't NASA do that? They would get so many more people believing in this stuff, but they won't do it. They won't do the very thing that would actually help them to gain more believers. And that is a dead giveaway, right? Instead, we get grainy photos. We get photos only, very controlled. You don't get any video footage of, like, here's what I want to see. I want to see some footage of the moon surface, right? And forget all this crap about, oh, the exposure of the camera. That's why you can't see the stars. Yeah, it's just exposure. It's too bright. Okay, we'll change the exposure. We want to see it all. Make it so we can see the stars, so we can see if it's positioned correctly. But see, they don't want to do all that because they want to control all the variables. That's what this is about. And the more information you put out there, and I'm talking about digital information, you can no longer control the variables because someone's going to make a mistake and the stars aren't going to be in the right place, right? And so they don't want that. So they give us very controlled images that you can't double check and cross-reference and all these things. And that's why they do it. It's about controlling the information. But I would like to see, the probe like throw a rock or something into the moon dust and see the moon dust kick up and like watch that. That's what I want to see, like real stuff, real footage of what we're told is the surface of the moon. But we'll never get that. I don't care if Artemis goes, they'll just make more productions and more fake stuff. And people still believe Trump, even though he now has funded Artemis and Apollo. I don't know how much more proof people need. Okay. It's like the truth people put their brains on the shelves and they just believe Trump. They believe that Artemis is going to take humans back to the moon, even though NASA has done nothing to prove that they were ever there to begin with. So, but we will carry on, you guys. We will carry on. The golden age. It's going to get real interesting, isn't it, after January 20th? I can't wait to cover all the developments, see what's all going to go down. I can't wait to hold Trump accountable to his promises, some of which I believe and agree with, but I just don't think it's going to happen. But we'll hope for the best and see what happens. Yeah, weren't they supposed to man Artemis this year? Yes, they were supposed to. R. Jones. Yeah, they keep pushing everything back and pouring more money into it. All right, what else is going on, you guys? Imagine if Kamala won. It'd be more of the same. We still had the Artemis program. Biden didn't shut that down. We still had Trump care, Obamacare. Biden didn't shut that down. People think that it would have been so much different. The only thing I can think of that might have been different, guys, gas prices are still low. I don't see them going down any further than they're at now. We're at $2.50 a gallon here in Arkansas. I don't see gas prices ever going down to $1.75. They'll either stay the same or go up. Okay. The only thing that I can think of that would have been different with Harris, because think about it, it's a very good question, because someone actually put that in the comment section yesterday. They said, we're still better off with Trump, is what they said. I said, in rhetoric, yeah, that might make you feel good at night, but nothing will really change. The only thing I can think of is the green energy $1 trillion that Harris spent, or Biden spent, on green energy, right? Now, I would hope that that would be a slam dunk, that Trump would make all that go away. But already, he's not following through with one simple promise. He has not talked about it, about revoking all of the subsidies to electric vehicle technology. So all we're going to have, you guys, is liberal states resisting Trump's policies. That's what we're going to have. They're still going to have their 2030 agendas, New York and California. Is Trump going to make that go away? No, he isn't. And how is it that Elon Musk with electric vehicles moved to Texas? Nobody in Texas wants electric vehicles, but there he is. So they're just mixing everything together now. Now you can say, oh, well, if we had Kamala Harris, the border would be a mess. Well, if you look, Biden actually did send a lot of the immigrants home. You can look that up. They did a lot of deportations, but their policies kept the door open. But I don't think Trump's going to change that much. He's not going to force the states to change their policies. Unless he can do that, unless he can force the states to change their policies that are drawing the immigrants here, then it's going to be more of the same. And he'll work on the wall, but obviously the wall hasn't stopped them from coming, because Trump's wall was already in place during the whole Biden presidency. Biden didn't tear down the wall. In fact, they actually kept building the wall. We did a video on that during the Biden presidency. So there's not much of a difference between the two. It's all rhetoric. And people get going on the contest and the rhetoric, and they think that something's being done and nothing's being done. So let's look this up, because I want to show you guys some facts. How many deportations happened under Biden compared to Trump? Okay, this is just a simple search. The Biden administration is on pace to match the Trump deportation numbers. Sounds much different than the rhetoric we were giving, doesn't it? Now, again, this all comes down to state policies. The states are what's drawing the migrants in. They're running cover for the migrants. But Trump has no plan to change that. Yeah, he's going to go in with the military, he says, and deport people. But this is the track record, you guys. Who would have ever thought? The Biden administration deported the same number of people as Trump did during his presidency? How can that be? This is dated June 27th, 2024. That sounds impossible, right? But yet it is true. Now, if you're locked up in emotions, you would never believe that. You would think, oh, Trump did a great job. Now, you can say that Trump's wall might have given a slight advantage, but the fact is that the same number of people have been deported. Now, a lot more people could have come in under Biden. Maybe. I guess you could argue that. But it's not this stark difference between the two that you think it is. All these people are secretly on the same side. I know that's really hard for some people to imagine and believe because people get so emotional and they think, I'm a conservative or I'm a liberal. And they actually believe there's a huge difference. But the only difference is the emotion of it. There's really no change. Let me give you another example. Is Trump going to shut down all these lithium projects that have already, these companies have invested billions of dollars in across multiple states? I showed you guys the maps. Is he going to shut down the battery plants, lithium battery plants that are springing up everywhere? They're exploding and ruining the sky and groundwater in communities because that was all put in under Biden. Is he going to shut all those down and say, no, we're going back to oil and gas until we can have reliable electric technology? But no, here's what Trump's saying. He's going to leave all those lithium projects in place and battery plants, and he's just going to build nuclear power plants, and that will fuel all the electrical needs of electric vehicles. The subsidies haven't gone away, have they? And they didn't go away during Trump's first presidency. Yes, the federal government was giving money to people like Elon Musk to continue to develop electric vehicle technology. That was never, ever pulled off the table. So what is the difference? Not really a big difference. Now, I know Trump also jokes about wind energy. I think he said it was killing whales or birds. I don't agree with wind energy either, but is he going to reverse all the wind energy that was put in? I don't know. Or is he going to put a stop to it? I guess that all remains to be seen. It all remains to be seen. That's a good question. So hopefully I addressed all of those points for you guys. If you guys have any disagreements with that, you can politely state it and we can continue that discussion. But I don't see a huge difference between the two, other than rhetoric, to be honest with you, and people's disdain for Kamala Harris. And you have the right to feel that way. I don't like her either. Completely unqualified for anything. But she just follows the agenda of her masters, just like Trump does. And everything else is just rhetoric. The proof is in the actions. That's the proof. We already have precedent to shut down all subsidies to illegals. We already have justification for it under national security. We're told that there are these people from Iran and China. They have documentation that they're coming over the border. That's national security. Therefore, you put laws and executive orders in place, forcing the states to not give away freebies to anyone who does not have documentation, who's not a legal citizen of the United States. And then these people have nowhere to go. They can't get jobs. They can't get a driver's license. They can't get health care. And they turn around and they walk back in the other direction. Anyone harboring these people should be thrown in jail, pretty much, or fined. And that should all be stated in writing. I don't know how else to put it, you guys. So we'll see what happens. We will see what happens. All right. What else is going on, you guys? Good morning. Occupy the moon. Wind requires battery storage. unless you've got something constantly running passively. Thanks, Love Cat, for that. Good morning. All right, you guys. Well, what do you think? You guys have anything else you want to talk about? Love Cat's looked into wind turbines off grid. Is there a Windmaker Illuminati card? That's a good question. RVs banned in the US in 11 states. Oh my goodness. Yep, they're cracking down, you guys. They're not producing them anymore in some states. Let's look that up. It's a great one. Let's see if that's true. I'm going to fact check you. Wow. Today is someday. This looks like a YouTube channel 15 hours ago. What states are banning RVs? This tells you that we're in for an economic downturn. That's what's happening here. And they want to squeeze people into some kind of 15-minute city or a freedom city. They're both the same, just with a different label. And therefore, they already know this is going to happen. They know things are going to get really hard. And for those people that don't have a home, they don't want you to live in an RV. So they're going to ban the RV so they can force you into these places. So here are the states that are banning RVs: California, Washington, New York, Oregon, Massachusetts, and New Jersey are poised to effectively eliminate the sale of new gas and diesel-powered RVs starting in a few weeks. Wow. Now, they're doing this under the guise of quote-unquote climate change, right? They're saying that these things emit so many emissions that it's more than a regular car. Oh, but they won't do away with diesel-powered semi-trucks, but they'll make it so you can't live off the grid, or you can't find a way to exist on Earth without some kind of legal footprint. This is what they want, because they can tax the legal footprint, right? They can tax your home, wherever you lay your head. So therefore, they're going to make these outlawed. Now, this is shocking, you guys. This is bad news for a lot of people, okay? Because a lot of you live in RVs. Now, this is the new sale, and so this is going to take, maybe a decade before they go extinct. But essentially what they're saying is this is the end of, living in an RV. Those days are over. This is the beginning of the end. Now, don't be afraid. All this means is that we're very close to the end of Jesus' return, because these are the times that the Bible talks about. The tribulation, where things aren't so easy for Christians anymore, right? A lot of Christians living in RVs right now to survive. And look at when they do this in the dead of winter, when people are trying to stay warm, is when they announce this. So this is the future, you guys. Wow. New gas and diesel powered RVs. Now, do you see the problem here? These are state laws. And, no matter what Trump says, what his rhetoric is, unless he passes an executive order to make this not happen, then it's a liberal agenda that's being forced on the people that live in these states. And you can argue, I'll just go move to a conservative state. Well, that's what I did. Guess what? My governor's acting like a liberal. One of the largest lithium mine proposals and projects in the world is happening in my state. my conservative state of Arkansas, lithium for the electric vehicle batteries. So there you go. California banned large trucks too. Gosh, it's going to look like a third world country over there pretty soon. So, yeah, I've been doing Zoom calls with my mom and my sister every weekend. And my sister is like, she has a pretty good job. She does titles for a DMV, some kind of title company. So anytime there's like a natural disaster, flooding and vehicles and stuff, she works with that. I don't know exactly what she does, but she makes good money, and she can't even afford her rent. Her rent went up to $1,800 a month. $1,800 a month. And in California, the way it works is every year they just keep upping the rent. You don't get 3 or 4 or 5 years where your rent stays the same. Every year it goes up to the max that the law allows. You can't pay it. Oh, someone else will come in and pay it. There's waiting lists. And this is how they get away with this stuff. So California is falling apart, essentially. It's nothing like the California I grew up in. So thanks for that bit of news. Appreciate that. Convert a van, says Walking Axle. If I were you and I was in California and owned property, I would sell that. I would take the equity in my home. This is what I've been trying to tell my mom. I was like, Mom, you have enough equity in your home. Sell it and buy a house cash here. You're retired. You would literally open up, thousands of dollars a month in your retirement that you're not paying for the mortgage on the house, and you'd be home free. And if you get bored out here or you feel isolated, you could just leave. You hop on a train or a plane or just take a drive across the country. But people in California, they spend so much of their income on living that they have nothing left. And then they go into debt. It's insane, you guys. It's insane. My sister's paying like $800 a month for a car payment. I'm like, what are you doing? That's insane. To drive around. And when you extrapolate that out, you could literally rent a car for about half of that. Well, not anymore. Car rentals are super expensive now. It's almost $100 a day to rent a car. Used to be, remember the days of $25 a day to rent a car? Not anymore. Not anymore. Now, this is unsustainable. They always lecture us about unsustainability, but the rising costs for middle-class citizens is unsustainable. Can't continue to pay these high prices for all this stuff. And then their insurance rates are going up. It's literal insanity. Thanks for waking up now. Thanks for all your work. You're so appreciated. I appreciate each and every one of you guys too. You guys are awesome. You guys make this channel. So Def Bread has a 84 RV. So if you've got an RV already, hold on to it, right? Because you're not going to be able to buy a new one. And automatically the value of your RV has just gone up substantially based on some of these laws that some of these states are passing. The problem is that eventually your RV will, the value of it will fall through the floor when they start making it illegal to park the RV anywhere. And already some people are running into this. We remember the 1980s and 90s where you could pull up an RV anywhere and just hang out. Well, now you get harassed. And this is what kind of like discouraged me from purchasing an RV, because I almost did, I think about 5 or 6 years ago, we did a video on RV life, and I was really going to actually do it. I was going to get an RV. I'm glad I didn't, but that's what I was thinking about doing. And then I realized, I did some research, and I realized there are places where you can't park an RV. And if you do park it, there's a few places you can. There's some places like in Arizona, and there are huge places like BLM land where you can hang out for a while. But, I've heard stories of people that have done this, and it's difficult, and forget about California. You can kind of drive through there in your RV, but the minute you start parking and the authorities start harassing you, and it's not so easy as you think. national forests, they keep a really close eye on that. And then you got to give them all your information. They know exactly who you are. Like, who wants to do that? So, Star says, Casey, do you have a PayPal? Yeah, I've got links in the description of all my videos for the PayPal. So thanks for that. For those of you that donate to the channel, it's much appreciated. Yeah, and then with gas prices the way they were, it just didn't make sense to drive an RV. Now, again, gas prices have come down, but then you're at the mercy of the gas prices when you're in an RV. And so to move the thing around, essentially, it could cost you more to put gas in your RV and move it around than it would to rent somewhere. Like, that's where you get down to that point, unless you can park it and leave it there. So, all right. Yeah, illegal to park at Walmart now. That was one freedom that they took away, because I remember about 10 years ago, you could literally, they were advertising it. You could pull up to any Walmart and park your RV, right? Well, now that's over. They don't let you do that anymore. And think about it. They've got cameras in the parking lot of Walmart. This is about privacy as well, okay? You don't want all your information shared with these government entities and tracking how many days you've been on national forest land and have all your information. And then, they're ticketing and fining people if all your papers aren't in order. Let's say you weren't able to afford, registration on your vehicle for a particular month. And then all of a sudden, these park rangers will mess with you. They'll write you a ticket for that. Or let's say you have a pop stick and you don't want anyone to know about it. Well, these park rangers have a lot of power. And I'm not trying to scare people out of this. I'm just telling you that times are changing, you guys. And my heart goes out to people that are in an RV right now who are, dealing with this, because you guys all know what I'm talking about. And if you do live in an RV or have lived in one in the past, chime in and share with us the difficulties and challenges that you faced living in an RV and how it's gotten worse over the last decade, because we would like to know. Now, I've heard stories from people that I know, and it's pretty crazy, you guys. They basically don't want people doing it. They say it's okay, but then when you try doing it, they mess with you. So, yeah, you got to have a permit. A lot of people value their privacy. They don't want to fill out a permit. They want privacy. They don't want a camera on them. They basically want no one to know they're there. They want to drive out into the woods and just live. And that should be allowed in America, but it's not. They want you on a footprint. They want you in Egypt. They want you with an address. This is why the word address is in the word headdress, which is the Sphinx. And this is why during the Passover, the last plague of the 10 plagues of Egypt was the Passover. The lamb and the blood on the posts and lintel of the door, which is the sides and top of the door. And those who were postmarked with the blood of the lamb, they were passed over, and their firstborn did not die. Well, now the pharaohs want you to have an address. If you don't have an address, then the pharaoh can't control you, right? So they funnel us all into an address. In this role reversal, postmarked. Except you're postmarked with the pharaoh instead of the blood of the lamb. This is what they want. This way they can ticket you and fine you and tax you. They have somewhere to send it to, right? And that way they can keep track of you. Even me out in this rural area, people can find out where I live because it's all public record, right? Isn't that crazy? No one can hide. If you own land, you can't hide. And that's the crazy part about all of this. But we did a whole show on the postmark and what all that means. That the devil has to have an address for you. And this is why we have web addresses and email addresses. Everything is about an address. So the pharaoh can maintain control over you. Just like he did the ancient Hebrews, the Israelites that were under his control. So, right, Love Cat? It's unnerving to see your homestead on Google Maps. Yep. Now, I don't live in fear. I mean, it is what it is. But what I'm saying is, the less that the beast has his claws in your life, the better. The more claws they have in your life, I mean, you open yourself up to all kinds of problems. People can sue you. They can come take your property. All these things. We're not supposed to be living in the beast. We're supposed to try to be out of the beast system. A lot of people are fully invested. I see people do it all the time. They're fully invested in the beast system. And then when things go wrong in their life and all their stuff is taken away, they can't understand why. And I'm like, it's because you're invested in the beast system. It's going to go wrong at some point. It's better to start to back the car out of the garage, as I say, to start to live a simpler life without a bunch of stuff that other people want that you have, right? So, yeah, you can blur out your house on Google Maps if you want. But yeah, the simple fact of doing that, like if you were to like send that in to Google and demand that they blur your house, that automatically puts you on a list, and they're even more focused on you. They're like, okay, here's all the people that have something to hide, is what they think. And then you go on like a list and you become like targeted. So I don't know if I would do that personally, because it would just draw more attention to it. Yes, always be ready for no electricity. Absolutely correct. All right, guys, we've been on here a bit, so I'm going to pop off here. I love each and every one of you guys. So tomorrow we'll be looking into how purple dye is made and the pearl in the harbor. So I'll see you guys all tomorrow. Much love.